Today, I'm going to show you how to create a project manager stakeholder communication system. Basically, as a project manager, you're going to be able to enter status updates, and then an agent will look at those status updates and reference your project charter in Notion to understand who might need to be notified about your update you just made, and then track that. And then at the end of the week, another agent will go in, look at all of the past week's updates, and create a status update email for you. You'll get a notification in Slack to either approve it or reject it. If you approve it, it will be sent off in Gmail. This makes it so easy to track status updates and make sure the right people are informed about your project. So you'll be able to click the link to get this template, and when you do, this canvas will open up with everything you need to get this running. It tells you exactly what is included, step by step how it works. So we're going to go ahead and click use this template, and this will create everything for you in Zapier. It also includes links to various other templates that you might want to use, like in Zapier agents, and we'll get to that, or even in Notion. So step by step, let's see what was created and how this works so that you can use it for your projects. You'll see a tour pop up. It's going to guide you through this. So let's go ahead and start it. The very first step is a project manager will fill out a status update. This is a form that you'll just be entering in a title and description. Next, it will store that update in a Zapier table, so you have all your updates listed for you. Then that agent, using Zapier agents, will categorize the status update and identify who might need to be notified. And all that's from a project charter that you have in Notion. You can grab a template in the notes. And then lastly, it'll update those fields. The agent will update the fields in the table. So you'll have one table where an agent's intelligently updating it for you. And then lastly, it will create a status email with the Zap. Every single Friday, this will run. It will go ask this agent to create a status update, and then it will send an approval request in Slack. So you can see exactly what it's going to send, and if you approve, it will finally send it via Gmail. A lot packed in. All you did was click a button and you have all of this. So let's go through and do a couple things to get this moving. The first thing we're going to do is open up the interface so that we can see the form that you're going to fill out. It's very simple. A title and details. When you click this link here, it will open up this form. This is what you'll want to save as a bookmark. You can come back here. So maybe there's, some update here, like a timeline update. Maybe someone's out on leave, so you need to adjust the timing. Great, you submit the update. That's all you need to do to get this thing running. When we go back into the canvas, we can see things are stored in a table. And so that table, if we open it up, we'll see that status update that I just sent. There it is. And we see that there's a whole bunch of other fields here that aren't filled out yet. And this is what the agent is going to work on. So if we go back to the canvas, you'll see this agent step is next. Now this agent hasn't been built for you yet, but all you need to do is go into the notes and you'll see the template that you can use. So I'll click the template and choose use this template. It will ask you to connect your apps. There's a Notion piece to the agent here, so you can connect your Notion account, or you can skip this if you don't have your Notion, or you have another place where maybe you have a project charter like Google Docs or something like that. But for now, we'll move forward with this, and you'll see here the agent's already set up for you. All you need to do is adjust these pieces here. The trigger, when is this agent going to wake up and do work for you? This is going to happen every time there's a new status update, right, in that table. So when we go and adjust this, we want to just make sure the table is selected. You'll see project status updates is that table. And then here is where you want to add in the database from your Notion doc that has a project charter. And so what you'll want to do to get this, you could create your own or go back into the canvas and you'll see this Notion charter here. There is a placeholder template that you can click, and you'll want to adjust this for sure in your own account, but you'll just duplicate it for your own account and adjust it. Fill out the team roles, who they are, their email addresses, the goals of your project, whatever it is. You should have something like this. So back in the agent that we're working on, that'll be in your account. So you just authenticate your account, and then you'll want to choose database to tap into the roles of your team. That's really what we want this agent to do. So from those team roles, they're going to identify which stakeholders might need to be aware of the status update, look at the email address for them, and then it's going to go update the fields of that table. So again, you'll just want to make sure that the right table is selected. And once you do that, you can see everything is configured here for you. It will update the type of the update based on all these options. It will also update the stakeholders to notify, the date logged. And so we'll click Save. It has a couple other pieces of information here that help this agent run. Now we just turn it on. You could test this agent to see how it works for that project that we submitted an update for. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll click Test. All right, so when we test, it will find the new record that we inputted, the new record of the status update we put in, right? That timeline update, we can see the details there. So it sees that, and then it starts looking at Notion, just like we asked it to do. It's figuring out which stakeholders might need to know about Tom being out on leave. Now we're just testing this. This will, because it's on, happen in the background. You won't need to do a thing. We'll do that at the end, but the test here helps us so that we can see how the agent thinks and what it's doing for us. Okay, now it says it's identified those stakeholders about the timeline update, who might need to be notified. So it's gathering those email addresses, and then right here, it gives us a preview of what it's going to update in the table. It lists out all the stakeholders it might need to know, which there's a lot of them. This is a significant timeline update, and we can see the update type. The agent determined it's a timeline update. Perfect. This looks good. You just click Approve in the testing chat. I could also, if things don't look right, you can send feedback directly in this chat. Like, actually, something's off. Adjust the category. And if you send something like that, it'll remember that feedback for the next time it runs. All right, so that agent is done. If we go back into the table, we can see this table has been updated. We got the update type, the stakeholders to notify, the date of when it's logged. All of this was handled by the agent. So when we go back into Canvas, this is this step 3 here that we're looking at. We created that project charter in Notion and the agent, and then it updated the fields. So that's going to happen every single time you submit a new status update. So let's go ahead and add another one. Why not? So we'll go back into the form. Let me zoom in here. And we'll enter in another title. We made some great progress on the mock-up for the website. We hit our milestone with no issues, so we'll submit that update. Now, when you're submitting these, enter in as much detail as you want. I'm making these short for this video, but you can enter in tons of information. The agent will take that and eventually we'll just summarize all of it when they send out the email. So the more the better, honestly, here. Just spill out all your thoughts, and we'll see in a bit how the agent will summarize that when the email is sent out. All right, so we sent that. Let's go back into the table. We should see it here. Perfect. So that will come in, and now we know the agent is working hard to figure out what's the update type, which stakeholders to notify, and it will also log the date. So while that's working in the background, let's fill out one more. We are unsure of the launch date. So some priorities have shifted. We need some input on whether or not we need to adjust the launch date. So let's submit that update so that's recorded as well. Let's go back into the table. It looks like our previous update has been categorized by the agent already. The other one's being worked on. So we got that. That second one is an update type of progress, right? We made progress. It listed out the stakeholders to notify for this progress. And if you look in Notion, let's see, Jordan Mills, let's see. These are just made up names, but when you look here, Jordan Mills is the approver. He is the final authority on project scope. And so letting him know that we are making progress is a good move. So Jordan is listed out, but some other people here don't necessarily need to know that particular project update, so they're not listed out here, which is exactly what we want the agent to do. If you're ever curious about why certain people are chosen or what the agent's thinking, you can always go back into the agent, and if you go to the activity screen, you can see that different things are either in progress. You can see, let's see, what they're thinking every time a new update is made. And you can even ask questions here. Let's see. For this one, this one was about projects or the progress. So let's ask, just curious, why did you include Jordan as someone to notify? So you can imagine this agent's working for you, and you're just asking some questions here to clarify why it made that choice. And it says, hey, Jordan was an approver. That's why they have final authority. They sign off on major decisions. So progress, milestone achievement, very relevant to someone like this. And if you'd want to adjust this for future, you just let this agent know. I almost said person. It's very similar to a person. It's wild. All right. And then here's the other one that we inputted in. Perfect. Looks like the marketing team, unsure of the launch date. That's what we want. The date logged is not being updated. So let's do a quick check as to why that's the case. We go back here, go to configure, update the record, date logged, let your agent generate a value for this field. Let's just make sure it's always doing that. And adding today's date under date logged. There we go. That way it'll just make sure it always updates the date logged for this date logged field. For now, let's go ahead and set that. I want to make sure that this is going to work the same moving forward. So sometimes you do have to adjust, make little micro adjustments to make sure this is working exactly how you want. Okay, so now we have 3 project updates. If we go back into the canvas, we can see the last bit here is this weekly email. The weekly email is going to be triggered by this Zap, and in the Zap, it will talk to another agent that we're setting up. So let's set this agent up. When you click into the notes, you'll see the template here. We'll click to get this template. You click use template. You use template again here. It'll ask again to connect your Notion account because it needs that project charter. And it tells you a couple ways you could use this. We're going to use this via a Zap, so some other workflow that we're setting up. And then what it's going to do is review all the status updates for the past week in that status update table that we've set. So you just want to make sure it's looking at that table. You click in. Perfect. So it will craft an email in HTML and look at all the stakeholders to notify, to then send over to the Zap to send this email, right? And then lastly, we just update the table so that the checkbox at the very end here, sent in weekly digest, eventually gets checked, so that we just sort of log that in the table. So again, just make sure that the project status update table is selected. And then everything else is not going to be updated except for that last sent in weekly digest field. We are going to have this be set to true. Perfect. And then lastly, you always give it reference, give it context. So you want to make sure it has the project charter for whatever project you're working on. There, and there we have this agent. We're not going to test this one because I want to test it in the context of this Zap that we set up, this predetermined workflow that's going to happen the same way every time and includes that Slack approval step that will be really handy. So the agent's set up here. Now this Zap is the last thing we need to configure. So we'll open this up. And AI will automatically start building for you. You can let that happen, or you can click stop and follow along here. Stop. We'll zoom in. All right, so this Zap is going to trigger every Friday at 7 a.m., but you can change this. Change this to whatever day and time you want this status update email to be drafted. When you do that, you configure by choosing the day of the week, the time of the day, and then you just run a test. It'll just assume that it's sort of that time just for the sake of testing. We'll continue on. Then this next step is to create that status update email. All we're doing is choosing agents and making sure the agent is selected. The agent selected is weekly project status summary email. That's what needs to be chosen here. You should see it when you hit the drop down and you'll see that agent listed out. And all we're telling it to do is just run. It's going to run once, and all the fields it's going to pull out, it's going to get a project name, the subject line, the email body, stakeholder emails, and a plain text email body. So it gets all of this stuff. You can click test step. It won't actually go run and do this, but it'll give you all the fields so we can test this. We'll click continue. This next piece is a request approval action in Slack. You'll want to select your account if you use Slack. If you don't use Slack, then you might just want to remove this action here by clicking the drop down and clicking delete. And then the last one, in Gmail, instead of sending an email, you might just want to create a draft email. And that way you'll have a bunch of these drafts ready for you. But for this setup, we have send an approval request. We click configure, and it has all of the stuff we would need for the particular update email already mapped in. Here's the message it'll send in Slack, giving us all the information we need. You can give it a name, a bot name, different bot icon. Of course, change the recipient to yourself. So it's a DM to yourself. There's a bunch of other information you could configure here, like the button name and stuff. But everything's set up here for us to just go ahead. And we can send a quick test, and you'll see it come through in Slack. So you can see what it looks like. Let me pull mine over so you can see mine. All right, so here you can see that come through, and you'll have all the details about that email, and you can decide to approve it or decline it. If you do decide to click approve, yes, send the email, it will say approved, Let me move that out of the way. And this Zap will move on to this last step, which is to send an email. Again, you could just create a draft if you want, but you'll select your account, go to configure, and you'll see the to field will be all the stakeholder emails for this update. The subject line will be input there, and then the body will be here with the summary of all the updates for the last week. Click continue. You could skip this test just for the sake of setting this up, and then click publish. Okay, that's it. So this is going to happen every single Friday at 7 a.m. And it will go look at all of the updates that are in this table. It will look at all the stakeholders to notify and make sure that they're included in the email along with a summary. Okay, so I just changed the trigger so that I can trigger this workflow manually so that you can see how everything works. You don't need to worry about this. Just wanted you to see the full process. So let me trigger this. 1 second. Okay, I just triggered it by visiting this webhook. Again, don't need to worry about that step. But this will trigger the Zap, and now the agent is running. So we can look at this by clicking Zap runs. And then we can see the Zap run here. Now we know it's been triggered and the agent is running. So we can open up the agent to look at its activity. Looks like it's in progress here. If we want to click in to see what it's doing right now, we can. This will all happen in the background though. So we'll go back into the Zap. The agent's looking at the project updates for the last week that are in the table. So when we go to the table, it should look at these listed out here. And likely should only capture these two, since it should capture anything in just the past week. So anything in the past. So I don't think it would capture this piece. The idea is to have all your status updates filled out, and then this would happen at the perfect time, maybe in the middle of the night or something, when it can look back at everything you've inputted. All right, so let's go back into the Zap. Okay, great. So this agent step has run. Now it should have sent me something in Slack. Let's take a look. All right, so we can see here it's sent over website redesign status email. Please review. Here are all the recipients that need to be updated. Here's the subject and here's the body. So it gives us the goal, reminds of the key success metrics, recent progress, when it's logged, timeline and risks. It maps all this out for us and asks for questions or feedback. This is amazing. So it did all this for us automatically. Do we want to send it? And sure, I'll send it all. I'll send it out so we can see what this looks like. I'll click approve. Do I want to approve this weekly email? I sure do. That'll send out. And back in the Zap, this will then switch to green and send out this email. There, we saw it. Let me zoom in here a little bit. And there, it sent an email. So let me check my email and see if I can pull this up for you. Okay, so here's this email to all these fake people. So I'll probably get a bunch of weird could not be delivered messages. But this is what the email looks like. Gives the title and everything else updated here. It does mention who this update was sent to. We might want to adjust that. I could remove that in the agent, just make sure it's formatted the way I want. But this is pretty good, considering it just took all of my status updates in the table to create this. Okay, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed it. Every time you have a project, go ahead and click this template again. You can set it up for projects, edit, customize it as you want, but you should have everything you need to get this started and start using AI to help you with these status updates. Thanks so much for following along. See ya.